Welcome to Building My Legacy podcast. This podcast is designed for leaders and entrepreneurs who want to leave a legacy and will provide strategies that focus upon key elements for legacy creation, determining your desired impact and its benefit, increasing your legacy's reach by engaging key stakeholders, planning, prioritizing, and executing. Here's your host, Dr. Lois Sonstegard.
Welcome, everybody, to Building My Legacy podcast. Today I have with me Michael Oster. He is a fellow Gallup coach. I met him because of Gallup coaching and at the International Coaching Federation. He has done a tremendous amount of work in various arenas. He is principal of Level Up Advisors. He's author of a brand new book, and we're going to talk about that book today. It's entitled Level Up. It launched yesterday, so it is hot off the press. And as an executive coach and advisor, he has had 20 plus years of experience as a CEO and board of directors leader to help clients be their best versions of themselves. And I think that is something that we all look forward to, is how do we be absolutely our best? How do we get our companies to be the best that they are? And he has worked with the private sector as well as the not-for-profit sector. He's worked as a CEO of organization and also been on boards of directors. So your experience is vast. And I would love to start, Mike, with knowing a little bit about why did you write this book? What brought you to this realization that there needed to be another perspective on how to look at becoming better, to move up the ladder, to achieve what we want to achieve in a more effective way?
Well, thanks, Lois. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Well, I've noticed, and thank you for the nice, kind introduction, fellow Gallup coach and consultant. I've noticed, and Lois, thank you for the introduction and the brief bio, and some high level titles aside, most of my work has been as a shirt sleeve executive helping my teams perform as well as they can. And over the years, in lots of different work environments, I've noticed that somehow people want to be successful, yet they feel blocked. They don't quite know how to get traction on how to achieve their own personal goals. Now, when it comes to organizational goals, that's what managers and leaders are for, is to help guide and incentivize and measure and provide resources. But the employees, or if you're a manager or a leader, or if you're an individual trying to make some progress in your own life, sometimes you just feel you have it within you, but you're having trouble getting traction toward your goals. And for that's the long way around, Lois, answering your question on why I created and wrote the book Level Up.
I think that is so true. I think people want to be more, they want to be better, but you're absolutely right. They feel stuck sometimes between the difference in their personal mission, vision, and purpose and what they see as the cultures. And, one of the interesting things that one person said to me one day is, my organization has multiple cultures. How do you work in that environment? And so there are many pressures that people deal with. So tell me a little bit about what is Level Up? What's the basic framework behind it?
Well, I'd love to. And to add on a bit to your comment about individuals dealing with different cultures, my goodness, isn't that an issue? And now there is an organizational term that is very popular called matrix management, and
Yes.
it's fluid. It's an equation with all variables, right? It's fluid teams reporting in different organizations with different purposes on different goals with different team members. And each one of those little groups and subgroups has its own culture. And we learn at an early age at adolescence how important it is to blend in. And when we become successful in organizations and business, the name of that changes to collaboration. And collaboration occurs within a culture. And if you're in multiple cultures, you have to collaborate differently. And it's a real challenge. And it's something that, and I'll use this as a segue, that Level Up can really help individuals with. So here's the answer to your question. So my observation is that we have two things that really drive us, and often it's subconsciously. And I hope that with my book, Level Up, you can do so more consciously. And we have experience and we have education and all these things, but what we bring and attitudes and personalities, but the thing we bring to help us solve problems and address issues in our lives is our strengths. Now, whether or not you've taken a formal assessment or you have a good idea of your strengths really help you, and they define you and they help you address things. To just as a quick review, what are strengths? And there's all kinds of different strengths, but strengths are the things you use that help you do things easily. You can, you feel that the time is passing. You feel you're posting results in an effortless manner. You look forward to doing that thing again. Those are all strengths. The other thing that drives us is our values. What do we believe in? And people don't often, because they don't want to have touchy-feely conversations in work environments. Usually there's no conversation around values, but our values, the things that we hold dear, and our strengths are the things that give us the most ability to approach our life in an enjoyable and productive way. So actually, in Level Up, the book, and the whole title of the book is Level Up: How to Use Your Unique Strengths to Improve Your Competencies and Reach Your Goals. We'll get to that in a moment. But back on values, as I have in one of the appendices, my Level Up large list of values, and it has 400 values in it. And if you'd like to revisit and and just circle 3 or 5 of them, you'll be surprised at how often you'll be thinking about those, thinking, yes, that I'm doing something now that's aligned with how I feel and believe.
But if you have 400 values, how do you get congruence in an organization?
Well, that's a good point. But values are for values. Values, in my view, values are for individuals. Now, if I'm consulting organizations in a strategic planning exercise, which is not related in any way to what we're talking about today, then in a strategic planning exercise, you've got mission, vision, values, right? And I like this saying about, the values are on the wall. You walk into a lobby and you see these are our organization's values, but the values on the wall are not always the same as the values in the hall. Right? People aren't living the values because why? Because those values are somebody else's values. They're the organization's values. If you adopt them, will you be more successful in the organization? I think absolutely. But that's the purpose of organizations, is to bring 2 or more people together. That's the only purpose for organizations. To produce results, if you need 2 people to work together, you need an organization. The basic unit of organization is 2 people, maybe you and your significant other. That's the basic team, right? And then it goes from there. And then from that, back to your point, organizations feel the necessity, and I think it's important to have values. And we talk a lot about values in the book, and you'll find some interesting values and vision statements in my book. For example, one from Richard Branson is, my vision is to have fun. That's it. A lot of these vision statements go on about it. I want to be a durable, invested, sustainable leader, and et cetera, et cetera. So Richard Branson says, well, I want to have fun. He doesn't talk about his transatlantic sailing record or his aerodynamic planes or his airlines or anything. Or his islands in the Caribbean. He just wants it to be fun. So I'm betting that the things that Richard Branson considers fun are many, many. So, but as individuals, the 400 values are just there as a dartboard, for you to throw the dart and say, pick some that resonate with you. And I think it's important, if we have a good sense of our strengths and our values, and then we bring those to every table at which we sit. And then the next thing that we bring is we have our strengths and our values, and then we have goals, right? We have goals and objectives. And what Level Up, and finally I'm answering your question, Lois, I hope. What Level Up has is a secret ingredient that I've discovered, which is how to use your values and your strengths to accomplish your goals. And strengths are, when I was a little kid, you grew up in Asia, Lois, so you're familiar with fireworks. And I remember firecrackers when I was a kid had a label on them. And they said light, fuse, and run. A strength is like that. It's a 360-degree burst of energy. And what I've discovered is something called competencies. And I've ordered 17 competencies that I provide the reader in Level Up. And you can use these competencies as channels. They're specific competencies to carry your strengths to your goals. And
Interesting.
Yes. And these competencies in time, every time you do something and you're successful, it kind of imprints and you're able to call upon it again. And this gives you a tool, which are the combination of your strengths and one of our 17 competencies. And these competencies and strengths become woven together. And I call them competency strength combinations. And competency strength combinations are the method that I propose. It's called the Level Up method. It's very powerful. It's a new method to address almost any issue in your life and start working on your goals.
So, can you give me an example of somebody that or an organization or a leader that you've used this with, had a strength, had a goal, and how did they use that with this method to achieve that goal?
Well, that's a great question, and I'll start at the bottom. I'll start with an aha moment that I had at a very young age, and when I was thinking of experiences I have had and trying to where I had been successful for some reason, and I thought, why? And this is where I actually discovered the Level Up method, and then from there we can talk about higher levels. So I was a child in Southern California. I was in the 8th grade, and I was working on my Eagle Scout, and I was having a devil of a time. And my mom was the wind at my back. The scout leader was a tough guy. He was a principal at another high school, not in the district I was in, where there was a lot of roughhousing going on, and it was really a challenge. But I wanted to get my Eagle Scout before I entered high school, and I just couldn't figure out how to do it. And my grandmother, a very wise soul, noticed I was down, and she said, "Mikey, what's wrong?" And I said, I just can't do this, Grandma. She said, life by the inch is a cinch, by the mile is a trial. That's what she said to me. Life by the inch is a cinch, by the mile is a trial. And I went home and I thought about it. I thought, I am facing in my mind, a tsunami of all these extra merit badges I had to get and projects, for your Eagle Scout and whatnot. And I thought, it isn't some big monolithic wall. It's just a bunch of little things. And I used a strength that I have, which is a ranger. And a ranger, for example, is a strength that conductors have, or a ringleader of a circus, or people who are good puzzle solvers. They can see the patterns and the best combinations of things. And I used a ranger strength to break down this big mass of individual projects, which for a little kid, merit badges. And then I used my strategic planning competency to arrange them in groups of 3 that were similar, so I could work on them together, like small batches, right? And I used that competency strength combo and jammed through the summer of the 8th grade and got my Eagle Scout when I was 13 years old. So,
oh, wow, good for you. Congratulations.
Not because I was particularly talented. I had a great support team, but I figured this little thing out. And there's an example I think that we can all relate to of strength and a competency. Now, I can, to pick other examples, and perhaps it might be better to paint the landscape, before we do a portrait. And the landscape that I see is, we have character strengths and we have work strengths. So what are those all about? And
what's the difference?
What's the difference? So you mentioned Gallup, and I like, for work strengths, I like the Gallup Clifton Strengths Finder, Clifton Strengths. And there are 34 of them. So we have 34 work strengths. For individual personal character strengths, I like the VIA, Institute of Character Strengths. And they, for a complimentary, Bless Via nonprofit organization, will, complimentary manner, will allow you to take the assessment and give you a report. And they will tell you about your 24 character strengths. So if you have 24 character strengths and 34 work strengths, you have a total of 54 strengths to choose from. But you don't have to worry about balancing 58 strengths, because the only ones that we really use are the top 25%. It's like everything in life, about the top quartile is where you want to live. So if you ran those numbers, you might have 6 good character strengths that you could actually use and activate, and you'd have 9 work strengths. So that would give you a total of 15 strengths that you own them, and what we have to do with it, and if we bring those into the room when we're running to decide what things we want to achieve, all you have to do is we just push our strengths through any one of my 17 competencies, one strength and one competency at a time, and you've got a winning little equation that only has 3 parts to it: your strength, your competency, and what you want to achieve. And if you try a one competency strength combo and it doesn't get you traction and take you progressively toward where you want to go, back up, discard it, save it for later, try another one. Sooner or later, one will work, and we all will make progress with this.
So, like for you, as you were writing this book and you started down this journey, what strength and what character strength did you use to get to your goal?
Well, that is a great question, Lois. One of the character strengths is perseverance, right? And writing a book, for those of you who haven't written a book, I'll bet you've thought about writing a book, and maybe you've thought, I could do that if only, if I had the time, and if this and if that, and maybe some of you thought, well, maybe I'd like to do that, but I don't think I could do that. So what drove me wasn't necessarily, I had to bring a lot of perseverance, and it's an intermediate strength for me. It's not something that I really own, but I had to develop it because we have signature strengths, the top 25%. Then we have intermediate strengths. So my perseverance is in the middle. So I had to really amp perseverance up, but I used my strategic, which is another thinking strength, and my arranger, and my communication, and my hope. Hope is a character strength because positivity is a character strength. Um, so I my job as an author, I think, is to serve my reader audience. As you mentioned, I'm a consultant also, and with Level Up Advisors, and it's levelupadvisors.solutions. Levelup.com was taken, so there's a domain for consultants now called Solutions. So I really had to. It's such a great question, Lois. Is I had to consciously remind myself of the strengths I needed to complete this project, and engage them consciously, and use my competencies as I was creating the competencies. And the voyage of creating competencies, if if you want to see how many competencies there are, the Office of Personnel Management of the U.S. government has a system called Mosaic, like the tiles, right? And they have, you can go online and look at this. They have thousands of competencies. There are hundreds of them beginning with every letter. And, I distilled them down to 17 that are very straightforward. And they live in what I call the categories of competencies in strategic thinking, navigating change, leading people, driving results, and developing yourself. And there are 3 to 5 within each one of those categories. And all we have to do is pick one of those categories that we want to use to accomplish a goal, and then drive it with one of our strengths that we already own.
Wow. So using that process for you, do you think that, what was the impact on your bringing your book to completion, on schedule, on time, on budget, on all of those things that leaders worry about when you start implementing a new concept?
Well, that's another great question, because the answer to that, and I think I've thought of it subconsciously. It's not a question that I've even asked myself, but we have powerful forces that we all live between, and we live at the intersection of everything that we are and our environment. There's a little slice of a place that we live, and it's sometimes the environment pushes us in a direction, and then sometimes we're pushing the environment in another direction, and sometimes they're both pushing, and sometimes both of them are lax. A week at the beach, with a beach read. So what I had a goal, which is it was an internal goal to write this book in a way that was understandable and valuable to the readers, and my readers this isn't an entry level book. It's for high achievers who want to take themselves to the next level. It's for leaders who are facing new challenges, and it's for high potentials who want to hit the ground running. So I knew I had to deliver value to those 3 audiences, and to the environment in which that desire lived was an external one, which is, I can't go on about this forever. I have to deliver it, right? And if it's so, I've kind of got. I'll try and wrap this up with bookend comments, because I talked about a moment ago. If you've ever thought about writing a book, first of all, the answer is yes, you can. If I did it, you can do it. And the you have the internal drive to do it, and the knowledge. And you know what? You're never done. Done is never done. Since the book was published yesterday, Cinco de Mayo, since the book was written and went to print, I've discovered all kinds of things. And I can't go chasing after the printing truck saying, well, wait, I've got some other changes. So that's what makes life interesting, right? It's a variable. So this environment we live in is always going to be moving, always going to be moving. And mine, I thought, I've got to have a date and put a bow on it and call it done. So I had the desire to do something and learn and be as good as I could, which could go on forever. And then I had to self-impose a deadline, which was this year. How convenient. It looks better on the publisher's page, right? 2020.
It does look better, especially since you came out so early in the year. So for your audience, what's your wish for them as they look at this? How do you think it's going to influence how people work, how they lead, how managers may manage?
Good question. Yeah. So, there's the book has a lot of concepts that you'll recognize, those of you who read it, that you've been exposed to as you've been solving problems in your life. And I try to phrase concepts I'm bringing to you using your strength competency combinations through lenses that you're familiar with, to look through different telescopes that you're used to looking at. And the overall goal is to help you be more successful at whatever you want to do. And, success is defined by others, not by ourselves. But you can use the level up method to help you find your sense of purpose and achieve the goals you want to achieve. There's lots of methodologies in here. There are lots of what they call listicles, right? 5 ways to do this, 4 ways to do that. It's everything from setting goals, resolving conflict, leading teams, whatnot. But in the end, we have a personal development program for you called the 7 Steps to Level Up. And it is, I don't think we have to go into that specifically right here, but I just want you to know and your listeners to know that at the end there is a very simple format you can use to apply these principles. You have to do the work. You've already got your strengths, and I give you the competencies. All you have to do is put them together one at a time. And if you work my personal improvement plan, the 7 Steps to Level Up, you will find yourself making progress immediately, making small wins immediately. And small wins help us be more enthusiastic, more energetic, and make bigger and bigger wins.
Mike, one of the things that I loved, it was at the outset, you were talking about your Eagle Scout experience and how you took all of the requirements, grouped them into where there were similar activities so you could get the similar things done simultaneously. And I think, first of all, that's brilliant for how most of us work today in a matrix type of environment. You're going to be doing so many different things, but there are similar tasks within that. And so I see that right there as being such a practical and useful tool for team leaders, for managers, project managers, perhaps people in the C-suite leadership team as they're looking back.
Absolutely.
So, Mike, you have the 7-Step to Level Up course, and you mention it in your book, as I understand, and then people can participate in that and begin to gain some proficiency with these competencies and strengths. Is that correct?
That's right, Lois. Well, the 7 steps to level up, we go into them in a lot of detail, but it just fits on one page, and it's a format, really. It's a framework that the reader can adopt as their guide. And
Great.
it starts with vision. And your vision is your why. Your vision is why we're here, and all that. The what is accomplishing your goals and objectives. So the steps in the middle of the 7 steps are all about the what, how to set achievable goals and to set them in a way where you can use your strengths and competencies. And the how is using your competency strength combinations. So you've got your why, your what, your how, and at the 7th step, you've got measuring how well you've done. And we don't try to work on really big goals. We try to work on tertiary objectives. In other words, if there's something you want to achieve, I think it's better to break that down and break a goal down to 3 objectives and break each objective down into secondary objectives and work on them one at a time. Go for those small wins. And the level up system, level up methodology is all about incremental small wins that will drive you to posting those big results.
Wow, that sounds great. I think coming out of this pandemic, all of us are going to need big results and in short periods of time. So it's that planning and pulling together every resource we have within ourselves to make that happen.
We're all going to be redefining ourselves. The future is uncertain, but the future is going to be great. There's no doubt about it. But we're going to have new challenges. We're going to have new ways we meet them, and we're going to need to use powerful methodologies to do that, to shine, to be our very best. So I didn't have that in mind about how to create the new you or meet the new future. I didn't know this was going to happen. It's been 100 years since we've had something like this, since the pandemic of 1918. But I think it is in this time especially useful.
Mike, our time is almost up. Thoughts that you want to leave with the audience, things that we haven't covered that you would really like them to know before we leave?
Well, thanks, Lois. I think once again the book is Level Up, and it's brand new in the Amazon algorithm. If you try to find it, the algorithms are working their way through. You might have to go in the Amazon browser, and because Level Up actually was a gaming term, I adopted it for our purposes here. But
well, some would say, Mike, that all of business is a game anyway.
Well, those are we coaches. Lois knows this. Every kind of coaching. There are marriage coaches and performance coaches and strength coaches and business coaches, but all coaching after the second session is personal coaching. It's about helping the person, not so much solving the specific problem, but helping the person solve the problem. So if we go on Amazon and we enter in the Amazon browser Level Up, but then my name, Michael C. Oster, you should see it. And it has a blue cover. I don't even have my own copy yet. I just have the manuscript. I could grab it.
We have a photo of it, and we'll put that in the show notes below so people can see that.
So I hope you check that out. We're having a free, for you listeners here today, and everybody this week, we're having a free 5-day ebook promo. So you can go on Amazon, and when you look at the book, you'll see it'll say Kindle, and then the paperback, and then the hardcover version. Underneath Kindle, there's the ebook version. And you don't have to be a Kindle subscriber. And the ebook this week only you'll see it in blue type, $0.00 free.
Perfect.
So
who can't do that, huh?
The 3 magic words, right? You, free, and now. So pick up the ebook. I have to warn you, it's dense. It's kind of like a reference text. And if you get into it, you may want to pick up the hardcover or the paperback, but you can get the free ebook now. So I just want to leave our listeners with, you can do this. We have a Level Up way. If you check this out, you have your strengths, you own them, revisit them, either take an assessment or just write down on a list what strengths you have, and use my competencies, and you can address almost any issue in your life very successfully.
Wow, Wow. What fun, actually. I think it's a great challenge and great fun to look forward to just knocking off some more of those goals.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Mike, thank you so much for being with us today. And for those of you listening to Building My Legacy podcast, thank you for joining us as well.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Building My Legacy podcast with Dr. Lois Sonstegard. To book your appointment with Dr. Sonstegard, visit www.buildtomorrow.com.